And they lead me into a interrogation room, and really this room is something like you would believe like a DMV or Secretary of State office, where there's a high counter, computers behind it, a couple rows of chairs, and it's a locked room, and it has an alarm on this room, so you're detained, and you can't leave without permission. So then they took me into another room. Now, in that moment, before I got into the secondary room when I was by myself, they allowed my wife and kids to leave after I advocated for that to happen. But what I felt at that moment is I was being racially profiled. And as an Arab and Muslim American, you always feel this nerve, this anxiety when you're traveling and talking to Customs and Border Patrol agents, because this is something we live with. As an Arab American, you feel this anxiety. It's just you, and I don't know if others feel the same way, but that's how we feel. Now, when they put me in the room and they brought up my work, my legal work, they told me, we know that you're an attorney. We know that you're taking on these high-profile cases. We know that you're representing these student protesters. That's when I knew this wasn't random. I wasn't being racially profiled. I was being targeted. There was the distinction. At that moment, now, I'm engaging with federal agents. This is not new to me. I do it as an advocate every day for my work. But I've never been the target of an investigation. And so that is nerve-wracking. And that is something where you feel a lot of anxiety when going through that type of an interview. But for me, I know how to control the pace of these interviews. Now, people and what citizens and lawyers need to know, you need to know your rights at the border. Now, as a citizen, they cannot deny you entry into the United States. So I knew that because I'm born in Detroit, Michigan. I'm a United States citizen. I'm somebody that practices law for a living. I know my rights. But this is most people would be afraid and nervous about that. They can't deny you entry into the United States, unless they have a warrant for your arrest, which was, be rare in a situation like I'm in. But I knew I hadn't committed any crimes, and there certainly wasn't a warrant for my arrest. So you don't have to unlock your phone for the government at the border. They can take your phone. The Fourth Amendment doesn't apply at border searches, and that there's been Supreme Court precedent on that, and hopefully it's going to go through the chain and get challenged a little bit more, because our phones contain so much data. But when they asked for my phone, and I told them, look, you guys already know that I'm an attorney, and I have sensitive information on my phone, and my device is used for a substantial amount of my work. A lot of this is privileged information. I'm not giving you my phone. And so their reaction to that, the agent, who's wearing plain clothes, by the way, wouldn't give me their name, showed me a badge but wouldn't identify who they are, and tells me, well, why don't you write down on a legal pad what you believe is privileged, and we won't look at that. And I looked at him. I said, how do you expect me to do something like that? I've got over a decade worth of emails, phone calls, text messages, files. Everything's on my cloud from my office. That's an impossibility. It's a non-starter. And this is where I kept pushing back. Now, at that point, they threatened me even more. They came back with a pamphlet. They said, these are the rights you have at the border. We can take your phone. We're going to take your device. Or you could show us your contact list. At that point, I acquiesced. I didn't want them to take my device, and I knew they had the right to take it. I wasn't going to unlock my phone. I wasn't going to give them the right to just go through it and rummage through it. But I did allow them to look at my contact list. And that's only in an effort to keep my device with me. But in this situation, you have to know your rights. Now, a non-citizen, they can be denied entry. Somebody who's a person coming as a visitor or on a green card, and maybe they have some issues, they can deny entry at the border for folks. And so that's when you have to be really careful. And so imagine you're a business person coming in from somewhere in Europe, and you have secret information about your industry. You've got, trade secrets or some sort of financial data that you don't want the government to show, and they could be used for blackmail, for foreign espionage. This is the type of things that this government is engaging in right now. They're taking people's sensitive material and using it for their own benefit. This is intelligence agencies that we're dealing with at the border. Customs and Border Patrol are just the gatekeepers. They're being told to stop individuals by other intelligence agencies so they can expand on a profile. And so this adds to what's happening now with these these kind of McCarthy area groups that we're seeing who are putting out these blacklists, the databases of students, of people publishing and circulating information about students and activists and lawyers who speak out on Palestinian rights. This stems from the same type of product that the intelligence agencies do. They're used to smear reputations. They put you on these lists where some people look at it as a badge of honor, but in the actuality of what happens, your reputation is being smeared. It has an impact on immigration decisions from the immigration courts. Your job prospects could be at risk if you're on these lists. This is all part of the intimidation factor, the attempt to dissuade advocates, the attempt to dissuade the free speech and chill speech among these students, especially now. And so we have to raise awareness on what's happening here, because I look at it as a digital form of McCarthyism. This is what happened back in the McCarthy era when everybody was suspected to be a communist.
Absolutely.
I think I think you're definitely on point there. And, when you're laying out about the chilling effect and the intimidating techniques and actions that are being taken against particularly international students and all students, as we see demonstrated through Samantha Lewis. But isn't there also, Attorney Makled, isn't there also some intimidation that's now being aimed at the attorneys that are representing these people? I mean, when we hear about, the Paul Weisses and all these other larger firms that are, what's the word you use, Barbara? Capitulating?
Yes.
Giving in, backing off, and
I single-handedly fought back.
Bowing. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I single-handedly fought back more than these major 1,000-plus lawyer law firms did, and I did it at the border by myself. People don't have to be intimidated by this. We have to stand tall on these issues, and these big law firms are an example. When they get when they acquiesce to these government proposals. Now, some of these firms have stood up for themselves now and are beginning to fight back, and that's good. But we're seeing this in this administration in particular is doing this approach of coming after the advocates, stopping the attorneys and putting pressure on the attorneys because they know the attorneys are the front line of defense. And they want to push and have a stress test on all of our civil rights. And if you're stressing not just the clients, but you're also stressing out the attorneys, they're trying to wear us down and trying to put us in a position where we're scared to take on these matters and these controversies and stand up for people's rights. We can't allow that type of intimidation to stop advocacy for these civil rights that we have. But it's happening to even immigration lawyers who are if I'm an immigration practitioner and the majority of my work is helping people seek asylum claims, and somebody comes to me and their asylum claim is denied, they're going to now look at that lawyer and say that lawyer is filing known frivolous activity, known frivolous asylum claims, and they want to sanction that attorney and say that they're violating their canons of their judicial ethics or attorney ethics. This is the type of intimidation factor that lawyers are facing now, and so we got to stand up to this. You can't just be silenced by this type of this is when democracy dies. If you don't stand up for these rights, and the courts are our last line of defense here. And I'm a firm believer that we're a nation of laws and that we're a rule of law nation, but the courts got to stand up to this too. Now, the way the Supreme Court ruled and the Trump administration just thumbed their nose at the Supreme Court ruling to return the person from El Salvador.
Yes, Garcia.
This is Mr. Garcia. This is a constitutional crisis. This becomes a constitutional crisis. If we don't have the ability to rein in an authoritarian type administration, then the checks and balances of our system doesn't work, because we can have the most beautiful Bill of Rights in the world, but if no one checks when those rights are violated and nobody has the ability to stop, the other branch of government from trampling on those rights, then it's meaningless. It's not worth the paper it's written on.
Everybody, listen. We are in a crisis of our lifetime. Please listen to what you've heard today from our guests. Our First Amendment rights for, freedom of speech and assembly, academic freedom, Fourth Amendment rights to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures, our Fifth Amendment rights for due process for federal government, Sixth Amendment rights for representation of counsel, our Eighth Amendment rights to be free of cruel and unusual punishment, and our 14th Amendment rights, so critical to our ability to have due process of laws by the states and also equal protection. All of these are at risk right now. Everybody, please, we want you to support the lawyers out there who are doing the right thing. I did write, Daryl, you probably saw it today. The Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights issued a statement that was by their former co-chairs talking to Big Law about its failures in this moment and its need to get a spine. But, I'm being nice about it. But the reality is we need so much more to be done. Thank you, Attorney Amir Makled, for just, leading in this moment. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, Barbara. I want to extend to you. Go ahead, Daryl. I'm sorry.
If people should want to get in contact with you, Attorney, how should people reach out to you?
Oh, they can go on my Twitter handle, Attorney Makled, and people can find me there on social media, or they can reach out by email. It's my first initial A, Makled at hallmakled.com, MAKLED. And again, I want to thank both you, Daryl, and Attorney Barbara Arnwine. You guys are doing, tremendous work in this space, and you're allowing people like myself to share our stories and speak to the truth about what's happening across, our nation. And these are the most, pivotal moments of our time in this country. But your platform is more than just an ability to speak. It's a movement, and it's an honor to be in the conversation. It's an honor to be part of the show. It's an honor to be fighting every day for justice and dignity and standing up for our Constitution. So thank you and your listeners for this, okay? Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Amir Makled, for being on our show in this maiden voyage. We'll definitely have you back. Also want to thank Attorney Amy Greer, who was on, who really just did a wonderful job laying out what was happening with Mahmoud Khalil. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you all the time, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you again. There comes a time when you got to get off the sidewalks and get into the streets and make things happen. That time is now. Until next Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
The preceding program was paid for by Barbara Arnwine.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
News Talk 1450 and 95.9 WOL with the Carl Nelson Show. Weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. Reverend Al Sharpton keeping it real from 1 to 4 p.m. And the Tavis Smiley Show from 4 to 7 p.m. Download our mobile app and take us everywhere you are or listen live at WOLDCnews.com. The news and issues that matter to you most from Carl Nelson, Reverend Al Sharpton, and Tavis Smiley on 1450 and 95.9 WOL. 1450 WOL, Washington, D.C. 95.9 W240DJ, WMMJ HD3, WDCJ FM HD3, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.